Okay, should be good. Brian?
Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to, we don't have John and Sarah Lynn from HGA on yet. So I'm trying to make sure they get on because they are the second in line.
Brian, I could hear you. Can you hear us okay? Can you hear me okay? Sarah,
I
Sarah,
can't, yeah, are Sarah and John on yet?
Sarah is here. Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, then we'll get started. Only 5 minutes late.
Good.
So how many folks do we have on Zoom?
There are 13 participants. One is me and one is you. So
Not that many. So it's always odd.
okay.
I'm talking that way, but I'm talking. That's all you guys here. So 5:30, we'll get started. I just wanted to cover a few things before we get going. As you know, I'm Brian Hickey. I'm the general manager of the electric utility. And yeah, we talked about that. Can they still see? I think everybody can see.
I'm using the camera in the back of the room right now.
Oh, perfect. Okay, perfect. So tonight is another important step in this journey we're on over the next few months to kind of sort of through an open and transparent process, understand what the community would like to do for the future of their electric utility. Up to this point, you know, we've done a survey. We had the first town hall. We've been putting information in your monthly energy bills, so we've adapted the newsletter, so it's kind of reflecting what we're doing here. And tonight we're here. Let me back up and say, in our first town hall, we brought 3 of the small co-ops who are sort of similarly situated to talk about what their world was like as a fairly small co-op. Tonight we'll have the railboat co-ops, which are and what they're doing as co-ops. And as a lead into that, I've got a brief presentation, which is hopefully going to take about 10 minutes. That kind of goes over what co-ops are. Everybody's talking about co-ops. I don't know if people really understand. Some people know more about them than others, but I'll kind of go over the history of co-ops and what co-ops do and why they are the way they are. And then we'll have a presentation starting with Chugach, and Nick Simonian is in the room. Trish Baker is online, and I don't know if Julie Haskett is online as well.
He's in the process of getting online.
She was just here. Hey, Brian.
Okay, well,
oh, good. You can see.
Yeah.
If you could put us on gallery view in the room, George, then everyone could see the other speakers. Julie's here, and you'll be able to see everybody. I just see myself, which is kind of weird, honestly. There. Okay.
So just an update, Shauna. Julie Esty would prefer to have you drive the PowerPoint for
Okay,
MEA later.
Okay.
I sent it to you, or she sent it to you.
Okay. There we go.
So there we go. Moving along. Good evening, everyone. Moving along, we'll have the presentations from Chugach, Homer, Golden Valley, and Matanuska, and then I'll do the presentation on co-ops. Then after those presentations, we'll have about 30 minutes for everyone to ask questions. So you can come up to the mic, ask a question. Folks online will be able to ask questions, and then all of us, the representatives of the other utilities, myself and Taylor, will form the panelists. And I did skip over. Taylor has an update after me talking about kind of where we're at in the utility day and some of the things we're taking on. So we'll move on to the cooperative presentation, which you have, Shauna.
Okay, one moment. And also you can turn that table all the way around as long as you have enough cord for the speaker, and then we can totally see you because it'll work with the camera position.
Okay. I guess, yeah, we don't have I don't want to tear anything out here.
Can you see the screen? Okay, thank you. And I'll introduce myself right here while we're doing the room logistics. My name is Shauna Toma. I'm here in Anchorage. I'm with the Northern Compass Group, and we've been working with the City of Seward Electrical Utility on the community outreach, helping with all the surveys and the updates in these town halls. And we'll be working on this throughout. And thank you so much. And I'll be helping moderate and make sure that questions are being answered that are online, and also that everything sort of works well tonight with the Zoom. If there's a problem or anything, just raise your hand or say something or put it in the chat. Thank you. And Brian, as long as you can see the slide, we should be good to go.
Yeah, we're good to go. So just, I'm not going to read all these bullets, but just briefly, you know, cooperatives have a long history. They started in the early 1900s in England with tradespeople trying to make a better standard of living. They kind of moved to Canada and then to the U.S. in the 1900s. And in 1935, as part of the New Deal, FDR created the Rural Electrification Administration. And the purpose of that was to electrify rural America. The investor-owned utilities that operated in the big cities, it wasn't profitable for them to extend electric service out into the countryside. So the REA was formed, the Rural Electrification Administration, and they loaned money to community groups who wanted to form a cooperative and put electricity in their neighborhoods. There are other forms of cooperatives. There's farmers cooperatives, credit unions, telephone cooperatives, and all of them have come along for various reasons over the years. In the 30s, when they actually formed the REA, only 10% of rural homes had electricity. In 1994, they declared their mission complete, and 100% of rural homes in America had electricity. And so what was called the Rural Electrification Administration, or REA back then, was converted to the RUS, the Rural Utility Services. And the RUS had, I should make sure we're keeping up on these. The RUS had a broader scope. It was more about economic development. It included telephone co-ops and some other things. So you can go to the next slide. I talked about it's formed by groups of citizens. REA's mission was to empower the rural communities to borrow capital and build the distribution transmission lines where they needed them. On that little map down there, the orange areas are cooperatives, I believe. Those are cooperative service territories in the U.S. So right now, electric cooperatives serve about 40 million Americans. Next slide. Just some co-op facts from a sort of a size perspective. There are about 865 cooperatives in the U.S. As you can see by the distribution there, about 147 of them are smaller than 10,000 members. And then there's a pretty big chunk that are between 10 and 50,000. And then when you get over that 50,000 member into the 100,000 member cooperatives, those are pretty good sized. The co-ops in the rail belt are some of the largest cooperatives in the country. So cooperatives tend to be smaller entities. And these numbers came from that doesn't include all cooperatives. Actually, it's missing 232 of them. It's those that file this particular form with the federal government that I could actually get the data for. Next slide. So some other co-op facts. Of that 860 cooperatives, about 830 to 850 of them are distribution only. So they have no generation and no transmission. 63 of them are G&T cooperatives, so all they have are generators and transmission lines. And then there are a few vertically integrated ones, most of which are in Alaska. And in Seward, Chugach is a vertically integrated. In fact, all the ones are vertically integrated. What that means is they have distribution lines, they have transmission lines, and they generate their own power. You know, if Seward as a muni is vertically integrated in that we have a transmission line, we have generators, and we have distribution lines. But that's kind of a rare thing in most of the rest of the U.S. As I said, they serve about 40 million people. They own 42% of the distribution line miles and 6% of the transmission line miles in the lower 48 states. So 42% is pretty amazing. They only serve 10% of the electricity and about 10 or 12% of the customers, but they have 42% of the lines because they're all out in these rural areas where they're building lines in long distances to different places. Next slide. So, whoops, that went the wrong way. There we go. So, as I said, I got ahead of myself. Cooperative utilities are kind of varied. But the one thing the cooperative model does is it ensures that the members' needs are prioritized. It's different than an investor-owned utility where really the primary objective is to deliver value to the shareholders. Obviously, if you're an IOU, you have a financial obligation and a financial need to deliver value to your customers, but your loyalties are somewhat divided because you also need to develop value to the shareholders who may or may not live where you are. So cooperatives are about the membership and the people who actually own the utility, and there are no shareholders there are no shareholders or stockholders that we have to deliver value to. I talked already about the REA's success in transforming rural America. One thing I wanted to say about the cooperative model, and I may have it on a later slide, but where an investor-owned utility collects a return and returns a return, or it collects money in addition to what it costs to actually operate the utility, and it sends that money to the stockholders as return on their investment. A cooperative holds that money and then returns it to the membership on a rotation schedule. And sometimes that's somewhere between, I'd say, 7 and 13 years. So we collect co-ops collect a little additional money. They use that to fund operations and equity portion of investments, and then they return it to each of the members on a rotation cycle. And so Seward, as a member of the Chugach Electric Cooperative, gets a capital credits check annually or a discount on their bill, which is the return of dollars that were collected several years ago by Chugach and used to build its facilities and keep itself financially healthy. So that's sort of where the additional funds that are collected to create operating capital, how they're returned back to the same people who gave them to them. Differentiating that from an IOU where those dollars are sent to the shareholders or the stockholders. I think I have that on a slide later on. Next slide. Oh, there we go. So governance is democratic. Each member has one vote. The objective is to maintain affordable, reliable, long-term community benefit rather than the short-term financial gain that sometimes could drive investor-owned utilities. REA and RUS is one of the most successful economic development programs that the U.S. has ever put out. And all electric cooperatives continue to operate under the 7 cooperative principles, which were really established back in the early 1900s by the Rochdale folks in England when they set up the first cooperative. Next slide. Here are the 7 cooperative principles. Voluntary and open membership. So anyone who's in the service territory and wants to get electricity, the way it works in Alaska specifically, anyone who's in the service territory and wants to get electricity, gets electricity, signs up for an account, and becomes a member of the cooperative and now can vote for the board of directors. It's a 1 member, 1 vote. Members contribute equitably to the organization. So there's a customer charge on your bill, which you have now. That offsets some of the administrative costs. There are the actual operating costs of the entity, and then there's the fuel and purchase power. So the structure is very similar to the bills that you pay today because we are a member of the Chugach Cooperative when we're buying power from Chugach. Co-ops are self-governing. They're controlled by their members, and they maintain that independence even when entering external partnerships. Co-ops have a mission to train board members, employees, the community. So part of the co-op ethos is to educate people all the way from the board down to the people who are buying electricity about the things that are important to them. Cooperation among cooperatives. Co-ops strengthen the movement by working together. There are a number of regional and national organizations that help us do that. The National Rural Electric Cooperative Association, NRECA, Northwest Public Power Association, Alaska Power Association. Those are all ways that the co-ops come together to move common issues for all the folks down the field. and concern for community. That's the seventh principle is co-ops prioritize sustainable development, economic health, and well-being for communities. So you'll find a lot of community outreach from co-ops doing everything from cleaning up roads to the roundup function, which currently is, Nick is the vice president of regulatory affairs for Chugach. They just put in a roundup program, which they've had some minor challenges with, but Roundup is MEA has one in place. I believe Golden Valley has one where, you know, you round up your bill, that money goes to a foundation that's separate from the electric utility, and then it's used to benefit the community. So that's really kind of a discussion. You could move on to the last one. That's sort of a discussion about what cooperatives are, and now it's time for Taylor to do his kind of overview of what's going on with Seward Electric Systems, and then we'll move on to the presentation. And I would appreciate it if you just keep your questions to the end, because all of the folks who are presenting and here in the room will form sort of a panel, and you'll be able to ask whatever questions you want, and you know, and we'll point it to the person who can answer it best. So, and I did it in 10 minutes, 13, I think.
All right, thanks, Brian. All right, and this will be going out in everyone's December bill for the newsletter, so we're probably going to have to make it two sides because it's getting pretty lengthy on. So just kind of going over what we've done in 25, and some of the stuff rolls over to 2026, but I'd really like to start by congratulating our entire Seward Electric team on an outstanding year. Without the employees that work at the Seward Electric Department, none of this stuff would be possible, and they're some of the hardest working people I've ever worked with. But every division, when it comes to operations, administration, engineering, and then our partners with vegetation management, stepped up in a huge way this year. Through smarter workflows, cross-training, improved planning, and tighter coordination, our team has increased efficiency across the board and significantly reduced operational costs. We've taken on more projects than ever before, and we've done it with a commitment to safety, reliability, and service to the community. Thank you to every employee for contributing to an exceptional year. So as far as the major projects go, the update on those, so our Spring Creek substation rebuild is now in the engineering phase. That just got kicked off a few weeks ago. And so we're looking at engineering for the next 4 months, and then that'll turn into construction to rebuild the Spring Creek substation. The Long substation rebuild, the engineering is complete, and it's on the council agenda on Monday. So if the council approves, then we'll kick off construction. And then our Nash Road transmission upgrade from Sawmill Creek to the Seward Highway is our last section of the 69 kV installation, and that project should start in March with Sturgeon Electric working on that one, and that should be complete sometime in June. Our hydroelectric, if anyone's been following our Mount Marathon project, we redid the Jeep trail up to the top, and right now we've basically mucked out the old reservoir, and manifolds getting rebuilt through our partners over at JAG. And you know, our community partnership's been huge, so JAG is rebuilding that manifold at half the price of what it would cost from the manufacturer to buy a new one. And then Metco helped out with our trail, and we also had some help from Catalyst. So just want to throw a shout out to those businesses. And then our AMI metering, actually, we had an extensive RFP process for the AMI meters. Landis & Gear came back as the best deal out of all the different brands. That's also in front of the council on Monday's meeting, but if the council approves, then we should be able to start installing the meters in June of next year. We have commercial and industrial meter audits coming up. So it's not saying that, you know, any of our commercial or industrial accounts are off, but it's industry best practice to give those an audit every 5 years. And then we're also working on integration with our electric billing. So early next year, you'll start to hear about some new software that integrates all the different software packages we're currently using into one to provide better transparency to our customers and the community. Another big one is our accounting and financial modernization. We've been working with this company called Utility Accounting and Rate Specialist out of Wisconsin. to institute the FERC Uniform System of Accounts. And it's an industry standard accounting practice that utilities use. And so by joining the RTO and the RRC, it'll make all of our tracking on all of our accounts easier to follow. And then it'll also allow us to capitalize more of the work that we've been performing. Our vegetation management, year to date, we cut about 21 miles of right-of-way, and which was huge because the crews were basically logging rather than performing normal vegetation management, cutting down 30-year growth and trying to miss the lilac bushes whenever they can. But AK Tree Service just did a great job, and I'm happy to report that we only had one damage claim that they were fast to follow up with. But they're coming back on January 5th to start the in-town clearing again. We started the community engagement and transparency process with our partners at Northern Compass and Hayes Research. And so you're on the second of the 4 town hall series right now. And so we've got 2 more after this one. Last night we had a quaint open house at our Mount Marathon hydro plant for anyone that was able to come join us for that one. But I think we had about 50 people that came through, and it was a nice evening down at the hydro. With our billing partners, we started printing the bill. So you guys probably noticed that the bill looks different, it's colored, and you can see your usage history on it. But we also found out that we can add a second page for almost no additional charges. So we're sending out the newsletter with every bill from this point on. And then for workforce development and training, City Council's approved the hiring of a local apprentice. So we're going to be able to hire someone that's freshly out of high school or AvTech or something to send off to the IBW for training. They'll be able to work a portion of that apprenticeship in Seward, but then for the stuff that we can't offer in Seward, they'll be able to work with our other partners on the rail belt to get the experience they need to journey out, and then they'll have a job waiting for them in Seward. So we're hopefully going to post that in the next couple weeks. The staff has completed a ton of training this year. So our engineer is currently up in Palmer attending NWPPA training for staking right now, which has been a great experience for her. Just got off the phone a little while ago. They have a storm out in the valley, so she's able to see how the designers and engineers are able to assist in the storm response, as well as learning more about staking. We've also attended training from APA on anything from GIS to accounting practices and SCADA integration. And then closing, overall, this has been one of the most productive and forward-looking years in the Seward Electric Department's history. Our team has delivered tangible improvements to reliability, financial management, renewable energy development, modernization of metering and billing, and long-term strategic planning. We should be proud of what we've accomplished and excited about where we're headed. And on that, we'll kick it off to the people that matter.
I'm going to give one minute, just a brief update on the Clean Ports Initiative. We have the grant from the EPA, and we are drawing that grant down. We've started preliminary engineering on the actual facilities, which it appears right now that the battery and it will be a 12 megawatt 2-hour battery. So just as a point of reference, Seward's load is about 8 megawatts right now. So the ships that will be coming in will be set up so that we can handle about 20 to 25 megawatts of ship load in addition to the 8 megawatt peak that Seward has. And that battery will help us level out the energy and regulate the frequency. That battery will be located at a substation sort of adjacent to and south of Fort Raymond, kind of right across the street from the where you turn in to go to the military facility there. So that's underway. We have preliminary designs underway. We have a all stakeholder meeting on Friday here in Seward, and RESPEC is working on the port side of the electrical, modifying the existing or the new dock that they're building so that we'll have the be able to deliver the electricity to the new ships. That's underway. And there also will be, we believe, a training component of that where we'll be we're working with partners at the IBEW, the Alaska Energy Authority, and AvTech to set up a training track at AvTech to train folks on battery maintenance, because there are a number of batteries that have been put in throughout the rail belt in the last few years. And potentially the Marathon Hydro could be rolled into that. So we have a training program for folks who come through that can learn how to work on small hydroelectric projects, maintain batteries, and also thermal machines, which is already as part of their training program. So with that, 6 o'clock food, didn't waste a minute. Okay, Shauna, we turn it over to you.
Well, Trish is up next. We have some slides. Let me pull those up. You ready to go, Trish?
Yes, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're actually going to have Julie Haskett kick us off, and I'll join a little bit later, and then we'll have Nick in the room bring us home. So let me share my screen.
We'd also love for everyone to introduce themselves and talk about what you do for each one of the companies represented tonight. The co-op.
Okay, excellent. While Trish is sharing the screen, which I cannot see at this point, Trish, so I'm not sure what's happening.
Might take us back. Let's see how long that takes.
Excellent.
There we go.
So thank you for allowing us this opportunity tonight. Our CEO, Arthur Miller, would be on this event, but we have a Chugach board meeting going on just down the hall. So Trish and I skedaddled out of the meeting, and Nick was able to drive down there. So we're really happy about that. To introduce the team tonight, I'm Julie Haskett. I'm the Senior Manager of Corporate Communications. Trish, do you want to advance the slides? Okay. And then Trish Baker is our Senior Manager of Government and Business Affairs, and Nick Simoniak is our Vice President of Regulatory and Economic Affairs. I want to start off with just a little bit about Chugach's values and our mission. Basically, safety, accountability, and sustainability is what we value every day. And to put it simply, providing safe, reliable, and affordable electricity is what we focus on every day. And I don't need to read you all the words, but this is our mission, vision, and values. Well, a little bit about Chugach. We have 450 Alaska-based employees. So when you call us, we answer here in Alaska. We're very proud of our A rating from S&P and our A- from Fitch. That's really important as you're working on borrowing and all those types of things. And I don't need to read you all of the statistics here, but we are very proud of our 60-plus year relationship with Seward, providing wholesale power. That's a pretty significant time, and we're glad that we are still partners and neighbors in all of this endeavors. As you can see from the map, Chugach serves not only Anchorage, but down the arm, Indian, Girdwood, Whittier, Portage, across the water is Tyonek, down to Cooper Landing and Moose Pass. And basically, we're next door neighbors to you guys, to Seward. And we're very close in proximity and aligned on the Kenai Peninsula, providing power. Some recent accomplishments. We've had a lot going on the past year plus. We've installed power on our solar power, if you will, on our South Central Power Project on the side. And on the Sullivan plant, there's a ground-based power plant or solar plant. Those are each 85 kilowatts. And then we just finished our new field operations and engineering building, and it has the largest rooftop solar project in Alaska. It's going to go online here first quarter of next year, and that is 165 kilowatts. Well, the first two smaller projects, they're basically just providing house power or station power, as you might call it. But what all this has done for Chugach is help us just learn more about solar power, how it works, how we can benefit from it, what tweaks we need to make. So we've kind of wanted to walk our talk by putting these installations, if you will, on our buildings. Next slide. We just recently updated and renovated our dispatch center here on the South Campus in Anchorage, but we also have a fully redundant, separate, offsite, away from here dispatch center. So if there was an earthquake or some sort of eruption that caused us to not be able to use the dispatch center here on South Campus, our dispatchers can move over to the fully functional redundant dispatch center and operate from there. And not only did we build it, but they train there on a regular basis. So if they do ever have to use it, it's not going to be foreign territory. They will be familiar with what's in there. And they're both really, really nice locations. Also this year, we launched the first community solar project in Alaska. We have 1,560 panels. This is subscription based, so it's a premium product for those who want to participate, because as we know, folks don't want to put solar panels on their roofs, or they can't because they live in an apartment building. So this allowed our members to subscribe to the community solar. And it was so popular out of the gate that we had to go to a lottery system. And so the folks who got solar panels, and they could choose between 1 and 20, were chosen from the lottery. And we now have about 50, 60 people on a waiting list, and which leads us to the thought that we're considering a second community solar project. It's been very popular with the folks who really are interested in adding renewable energy to their personal generation mix. Next slide. Many of you know, a year ago, October, we commissioned our battery energy storage system here on the South Campus. It's 75% owned by Chugach and 25% owned by MEA. It provides grid stability and enhances frequency response for us. It's been a great addition. We've had some disruptions like on the transmission line to the south and others that it's helped take up that slack while the system is reevaluating and restabilizing. It's helped not have some load shed events, which has been nice. And both utilities are estimating that we're going to reduce our fuel usage by about 5% a year with the battery. So that's been a really fun addition to the whole system, and important addition. Many of you know that we have a power plant and are part owners of the gas field over at Beluga. This year we went remote operations of that plant. It still exists. It's still available for emergency backup generation, but we're able to save money with the technology improvements by having staff come back over on this side of the water. And it's really a capacity issue. If there was say a volcanic eruption and we had to shut down our power plants in Anchorage because you can't have that volcanic ash going into the turbines, we could fire up Beluga and use that generation for a backup. So it's older, but it works, and we're really happy that it's there and that we've been able to go to remote operations while still maintaining that facility. Next slide. The Southern Transmission Line being rebuilt from Anchorage to Quartz Creek on the Kenai Peninsula, that's being built in segments. The most recent one we did was Indian to Girdwood, and in fact, we're finishing up a little stretch of that this winter that was not able to be done right outside of Girdwood last winter because frankly, it was too warm and we weren't able to get the work done out. You can't go out in the water, in that water, if it doesn't freeze up. Service our Kenai Peninsula customers and connects Bradley Lake project to the rail belt. Super important, this transmission line built in segments over, I think, about 20 years. And it's also being upgraded from 115 kV to 230 kV as we do these upgrades.
Okay,
And with that,
with
I'm going to turn it over to Trish, who's going to talk about some planned projects.
There you go. Hi, thanks, Julie. It's nice to see everybody remotely tonight there in Seward. I'll go over some projects that we have planned that are coming up. The first is Beluga Solar. The intent of this is to diversify our energy mix. This is a 10 megawatt project that will be located over near our Beluga power plant on land we own, as well as some adjacent land owned by Siri. You can see the benefits of that here. It avoids 2.8 BCF of natural gas over the life expectancy. Not a lot, but something, and that's the goal, is to diversify where we can. We're looking at operation by mid-2027. Next is Whittier Shore Power. This is a a partnership between Holland America Princess, Chugach Electric, and AEA. This project will provide shore power to cruise ship terminal and a list of upgrades there. Increased circuit capacity for those large ships, 5 miles of new feed line, transformers, and of course the point of that is better air quality for the community, so they don't have to run their engines while they're at dock. So really excited about the Whittier Shore Power Project. Also, we've got the Cooper Landing Satellite Facility. We purchased a piece of land over between the Sunrise Inn and the airport there on the north part of Kenai Lake. And we are intending to, you can see the little artist rendition down there in the corner. We're intending to make a satellite facility and operations center. This will help us respond, particularly in the winter time when we have those wind events like the one we had last weekend in parts of Alaska, to be able to have our equipment and personnel closer to the northern Kenai Peninsula area where we've got transmission lines and whatnot that needs attention if there's storms and like what happened last week. This project will also help us with mutual aid for Seward, just like last weekend when Chugach helped MEA via mutual aid in their service territory to our north. But by being able to store trucks and snow machines and other equipment down there, we will be that much closer to responding. When we purchased it, there was some left behind items. So we had a big garage sale, which benefited a local nonprofit, the Cooper Landing Community Club, to help clear that site. So that was, in addition to acquiring the land for a really good purpose, we also were able to engage with the community and donate to a nonprofit. We are increasing our EV infrastructure between Anchorage and the northern Kenai Peninsula. And the first project in that will be a level 3 fast charger to be installed at the Three Bears, the new Three Bears there in Cooper Landing. So we're excited about that. And it'll be the fast charger, the DC fast charging, 400 kilowatt speed, and we will own the infrastructure and a third party will be the operator. It will work exactly like the fast charger that's located here on the Chugach headquarters campus. It'll also be reduce the amount of distance from Seward to a fast charger from 126 miles to only 60 miles. We'll move on a little bit to fuel and generation. I think this is something we've been working really hard on. First of all, we'll start with our Chugach energy mix. We get about 20% from wind and solar, and about 80% of our mix comes from gas. We divide the gas into 2 buckets, if you will. 60% of our gas comes from our 2/3 interest ownership in the Beluga River unit, and 40% of our gas comes from the contract we have with Hillcorp. These percentages you see on the energy mix are of a total, but I was just giving a 40-60 ratio for just the gas. So our natural gas supply, Chugach is really uniquely positioned with our 2/3 working ownership interest in a gas field. That's pretty rare for an electric utility to have an ownership in a gas field. Let's see, back up there. Economically recoverable gas from the Cook Inlet, however, is unlikely to be meeting future demand. So we are working, trying to get LNG. Now we have a strong preference for in-state gas. And if we get in-state gas from the North Slope, great. If we have in-state gas from Cook Inlet, great. But what we don't have right now is a contract. So we are also working to import LNG to get us the gas that we need. So our savings and performance of the BRU, the Beluga River unit, is for this year alone about $19 million, and cumulatively since 2016, $140 million. BRU was the best producing field in Cook Inlet last year, And that means that we've been able to bank gas. By banking gas, I mean that what we produce and don't immediately use, we have exchange agreements with Hillcorp and Marathon that they can return that gas to us when we need it most, which is namely starting April 1st, 2028. So in this depiction here, you'll see the orange on the bottom is our Hillcorp contract gas, and that ends on March 31st, 2028. The green is the gas that we get from Beluga River Unit, which will then will continue to get that, and as that field declines, that is intended to or expected to go until about 2035. And then in purple, you'll see the banked gas. The banked gas is that which produced over and above what we immediately use, and we to the exchange agreements that we have in the underlift agreement, we'll be able to have that gas repaid to us when we need it most. That makes the wedge for what we need for in-state or imported gas that much smaller. And for the last couple slides, I'm going to turn that over to Nick and let him talk a little bit about we only have a couple more and we're all set.
Great. I'll do a little bit of introduction. So Nick Schmoniak, I'm the Vice President of Regulatory and Economic Affairs at Chugach Electric. I actually grew up in Seward. I recognize some faces in the crowd. I moved from Seward to Homer when actually did a year of school in Moose Pass, then 5th grade over in Homer. And since then, I've been in Anchorage. I've only been at Chugach Electric for about 9 months. Before that, I didn't have any experience in the electric utility world, or certainly not in the regulatory side. But when I heard that we were presenting to Seward remotely, I said, give me a couple slides. I want to talk to my old friends. And then when I found out it was actually a town hall, I woke up this morning, went to our CEO, Arthur Miller, and said, Arthur, I want to drive to Seward. Do I have permission? I had a whole speech lined up, and I think 2 sentences in, he's like, yeah, go. Get down there. So, and there's a couple, the main reason why I want to be here in person is because in my 9 months at Chugach, I have found it to be an absolutely wonderful organization. Everyone there is mission driven. Everyone, in kind of that order, they want electrical reliability, security, and low cost rates. And that's where everyone's pulling. And I want to come down here and tell you guys, directly face to face, and I'll be continue to come down here. My sister's family has a cabin out Mile 7. My brother Eric and his wife Hope, Cindy Eklund's daughter, just built a cabin out at Moose Pass and paid a good amount for Chugach Electric to sign them up. So, and also when I started Chugach Electric, one of the benefits of working at Electric Co-op is, as these guys probably should have put in there, is you get a lot of leaves and great benefits. So with all the extra days off I had, beginning of the summer, I went and bought a little boat, and I'm number 67 at the Seward Harbor for waiting for a slip. And my wife's convinced I only wanted to come down here today so I could go out to Storm Chasers and talk to Carl about the boat. But that's not the case. So in my role at Chugach, among other things, I look after the rates. And this slide is what it does is compares the average residential bill for a Chugach member to the other rail belt members. And you can see on the left the Chugach South and the Chugach North. And the Chugach South is the legacy Chugach Electric service area, and the Chugach North is what was MLP, the Anchorage municipal-owned utility. And we talked about our ownership in the Beluga River field. MLP was the original and largest owner of that field between us and MLP. So when we bought MLP, what we've done is, because they put a lot of investment in over the years, and that investment is producing gas now, the Chugach South members are actually reimbursing the North members for that value of gas. So that's why the North and South are different. So it's $178 million that we're paying, South members are paying to the North members over 10 years. And in the rates we sell to Seward, that payback to the North members is included. The other thing I want to point out is Seward's in the middle. Can we go back one more?
Yeah, sorry. There's a little delay. I'll warn everyone if you're using slides. There's a little delay. So.
Okay. So the Seward's in the middle, and one thing, part of my job at Chugach is setting rates. We just did a rate case this year. I think they said for a regulatory person, that's kind of the World Series, the big thing. And they told me 3 months in I was doing a rate case, so I learned how to do that real quick. But part of that is setting the rates for selling to Seward. And the next slide will say that, but or go into this, but I'll just say it now. While we increased Chugach Electric's rates, largely because our sales are declining year on year, we actually lowered our rates to Seward. And also, because of VP of Regulatory, I'm going to do the math right now. Can you go back again? I'm not going to do this slide. I'm going to stay on this slide until I'm done. So because I just did the rates for selling to Seward, and I can look at our rates, and Seward makes up about 3% of our electric sales, it's pretty confident to say that if Seward were to join Chugach Electric Co-op, your rates would look like the ones on the left. So an average residential from 174 down to 138. And that's because you're such a small portion of it, those extra costs would easily get rolled in. The generation's already coming from Chugach Electric, so we wouldn't have to do any simple math there. But it'd be a fantastic instant benefit, and I'm not getting anywhere into the process and recommend what you should do. I just wanted to come down and say with two things with a bit of certainty is Chugach is a great company, and as a regulatory guy, I can say that these would be your rates on the left. So I already covered the last one, so that'll wrap it up for us.
Well, we do have one more about our
More. That's right.
community outreach. You want to do that, Nick?
Sure. So one thing I did miss this morning when I came down here is we had about 15 of us going to Beans Cafe in Anchorage to cook meals. And that's just one example of the amazing community outreach. We have a program at Chugach Electric where I think we get, is it 16 hours a year, where we get paid time to go work in different volunteer options. We talked about the Roundup. That would have been a great program if we got it instilled, but even in absence of it, just the presence Chugach has in the community and being able to wear the Chugach shirt around town, it's 80% people getting mad when they open their bills because no one likes paying electric bills, but a lot of it is the support for the community. And I wish one slide or picture they had in there is a picture of one of our linemen fixing a down power line in a storm. It's amazing. When we did our rate case, we got some negative comments, but everyone added at the end. But I really like the linemen who get our power back on. So those are the real heroes at Chugach. So anything to add on that?
No, I think you got it. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Great to see everyone.
Okay, I believe we're going to keep rolling through the presenters and then we'll open up for the Q&A. Does that, Brian, that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, next up we have Sarah Lamb, who is on here. Sarah, do you need to share your screen or anything?
Actually, I emailed you the presentation because I don't work in Zoom very often, so I don't.
Okay, maybe I have that one moment.
Thank you. And while she's getting that pulled up, I'll just go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Sarah Lamb, and I'm the CFO for Homer Electric Association and Alaska Electric and Energy Cooperative. I understood you heard some presentations from smaller size utilities several weeks ago. Seward and HEA are similar in a way that we are the smallest of the 5 interconnected utilities sharing the larger transmission grid, otherwise known as the rail belt, in addition to being co-located on the Alaska's Kenai Peninsula.
Again, I have it here. I just need to.
I think I can skip ahead too. So we'll be on second slide though. HEA serves just under 26,000 members over across 37,000 meter locations in a geographically diverse service territory, including communities located on the south side of Kachemak Bay by way of an undersea cable. HEA employs 130 individuals to maintain its nearly 2,800 miles of conductor, 2 main service centers, 3 generation plants totaling 204 megawatts of generation capacity, and a 46.5 megawatt 2-hour Tesla battery energy storage system. In addition, HEA holds the operations and maintenance contracts for the Bradley Lake facility, the state-owned 120 megawatt facility located at the head of Kachemak Bay, in addition to providing O&M for the Bradley Junction to Bradley Lake transmission line and the transmission line that connects Soldotna to Quartz Creek, which HEA agreed to sell to Alaska Energy Authority in 2020. Alaska Electric and Energy Cooperative, or AEEC, is HEA's wholly owned generation and transmission subsidiary. This is unique to HEA, and this structure allows access to low interest rate financing for its G&T operations through the rural utility services, while maintaining operational flexibility on the distribution functions through its 100% CFC, or Cooperative Finance Corporation, borrower status. HEA has assumed ownership of two municipal systems since its inception in 1945, both the Soldovia and the Kenai City Light System. Other significant highlights include becoming independent and generating all of our own power needs after terminating the wholesale power contract with Chugach Electric at the conclusion of 2013. We installed the first Tesla battery energy storage system in Alaska, which became commercially operational in January of 2022. And most recently, we successfully competed for a $100 million award under Biden's Powering Affordable Clean Energy program, which was awarded in 2024. HEA has the highest proportion of board members to eligible voting members on the rail belt, and we're committed to this higher density of representation, having offered the creation of a new voting district to Seward through the last RFP process, thus creating an additional seat on the board during that RFP process. We're on to equity management. So practically speaking, the establishment of a new cooperative will mean the incurrence of debt and the management of equity, as Brian, I think, mentioned earlier in the presentation. Small electric cooperatives generally utilize funding from two major cooperative banks, or if they qualify, from the Rural Utility Services, or RUS. Large upfront capital investments are paid over time, over multiple generations of ratepayers, and the purchase of a municipal electric utility system or the development of generation projects are really good examples of that type of an upfront investment. Lenders will require that operating margins and therefore rates are sufficient to cover the debt service on an annual basis, and that margin or revenue above the cost of providing service is used to construct new plant and is recorded as equity on a pro rata basis for each member who paid for electric service in that year. It's a rather impressive record-keeping exercise, but a very important one. After reaching a desired level of equity established by either the cooperative board and or the lender, the cooperatives can return the equity or rather rotate it. It varies by utility, but at HEA that happens after 30 years. HEA is proud to return $3.36 million in capital credits this month to its membership, and cumulatively, HEA has returned just under $22 million in capital credits to its members in the last 6 years. In addition, the HEA board has invested $558,000 in unclaimed capital credits with a scholarship fund, and it uses the earnings on this fund to contribute to an annual scholarship opportunity for its membership and its children. Next. Homer Electric's Board of Directors participates in strategic planning every 3 years. The current strategic plan has HEA prioritizing innovative energy solutions, energy resource diversification, capturing emerging markets, and member-centric modernization. Developing innovative energy solutions includes working with the Kenai Peninsula Borough towards a 1.6 megawatt landfill gas project for which HEA obtained an $875,000 federal earmark. We are currently collecting wind resource data under grants provided by Alaska Energy Authority's Renewable Energy Fund at 5 locations across the peninsula, and competing for opportunities under Biden's PACE program, which I'll elaborate on in a moment. Over the last year, HEA has explored geothermal and liquefied natural gas opportunities, continued work on the Grant Lake project, and supported the state's effort in pursuing the Dixon diversion project, which would increase the power generated by Bradley Lake by approximately 30 to 50%. To capture emerging markets, HEA promotes heat pump usage through both federal program and the board's heat pump incentive program, which provides member and vendor credits for the installation of heat pumps, and a member-centric modernization, including the build-out of our second generation of smart metering, real-time online outage reporting map, and online membership application and forms. Next. AEC submitted a PACE application to USDA on February 2nd of 2024. This program was open to cooperative, state and local governments, tribes, and for-profit independent power producers. It was 7 times oversubscribed, meaning that there was 7 times more applications than they had funding available. AEC, in addition to Golden Valley, received 2 of the largest awards in the country at the maximum forgiveness level of 60%. And AEEC plans to install additional battery systems to regulate intermittent renewable energy. It already has the highest level of net metering penetration of any of the 5 electric utilities on the rail belt, and is under a non-disclosure agreement with for a 30 megawatt solar facility on the peninsula, which would not only constitute the largest solar facility in Alaska, but would bring HEA up to a 24% renewable level and mitigate against future escalations in natural gas pricing. Next. What's up next for Homer Electric is we are continuing to work on our Grant Lake project. This is a 5 megawatt run-of-river project located in your neck of the woods. We received the FERC license, which was issued in October of 2019, or August of 2019, excuse me. And we just recently received RUS environmental approval on this project in September of 2025. We are also actively working on our Nikiski repower project, which would replace our existing frame 6 unit at our combined cycle plant with an aeroderivative turbo generator unit, which would reduce our annual fuel needs by approximately 19%. It also reduces the minimum load at that plant from 40 megawatts to 5 megawatts, which would allow for the seamless integration of intermittent renewables on our system. And I actually have a much shorter presentation than everybody else, and I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. Thank you.
Great. Now we'll move on to Golden Valley Electric. Just need a moment to, Travis, why don't you introduce yourself and talk about your work there at Golden Valley?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, this evening. My name is Travis Million. I'm the president and CEO for Golden Valley Electric, your northernmost neighbor here on the rail belt. Golden Valley Electric serves Fairbanks and I'll show you on the map here in a little bit, a fairly large service territory throughout the interior of Alaska. My presentation is going to be quite a bit shorter tonight for everybody, just kind of giving a little bit of a rundown of Golden Valley and a little bit of what we're looking at in the future. And I'm just kind of waiting for the slides to pop up.
One moment.
No problem.
One second. It's a little bit wonky. Yay, there we go. Okay. Had to do it a couple times. There we go.
And you could just jump to the second slide to be fine. So Golden Valley, as you can see in the map here, serves a large service territory down the Parks Highway just south of Cantwell, up into Healy, Nenana, then north of Fairbanks quite a ways. All of Fairbanks proper down the Richardson Highway past North Pole down into Delta Junction. And then we are working on a line extension right now as far as Black Rapids Training Center to the south of the Richardson Highway. With that, we serve over 100,000 Alaska residents. We have 36,000 members, which equates to about 50,000 meters on our system. We have 9 generation facilities, 35 substations. One of the unique things with Golden Valley is that we serve 5 different military installations in the interior of Alaska. And we also have a very large industrial load. In particular, in addition to the 5 military installations, we have 2 large gold mines, Fort Knox and Pogo. Those 2 large industrial loads make up about 35% of our entire generation portfolio. With that, we also serve Alyeska and a few other large industrial customers. Next slide, please. With that, looking at kind of our generation portfolio, we've got a very wide diversification of generation. Our primary is liquid fossil fuels, as you can see on the right-hand side under the oil. We've got 4 oil-fired power plants, our primary being our North Pole expansion power plant or our combined cycle plant. We also have 2 60-megawatt turbines in North Pole that are older generation, 1970s vintage generation plants. For backup, we've got a plant down in Delta, and then we've also got a plant downtown Fairbanks for backup and black start primarily. We own and operate 2 coal plants in Healy, which equates to about 88 megawatts. The Healy 1 plant, original from 1963, is a 26 megawatt plant. Healy 2 was a Department of Energy clean coal demonstration plant back in the early 2000s. Golden Valley took ownership of that plant in mid-teens of 2015, 2018 timeframe. That plant has been a struggle, but it's been improving vastly on the output capacity of it. Currently, for self-generation, from a COPA standpoint, that is our lowest cost generation plant that we have on the system. As mentioned by a few others, we are partial off-takers of the Bradley Lake project as well. We do own and operate the largest wind farm in the state of Alaska, 25 megawatt Eva Creek wind farm, which is located just north of Healy. And on the slide there, we traditionally had purchased natural gas from South Central up until February of 2024. At that point in time, we're really not taking much of any natural gas coming up the intertie. As you can see, we've got installed capacity of almost 400 megawatts of generation. Last year, our peak load is at 205 megawatts. Just this morning, we peaked at 210.5 megawatts. So we continue to see some load growth, and we're projecting to see additional load growth in the future here as well. Similar to what Sarah was talking about and mentioned, the PACE award that through the Rural Utility Services, Golden Valley did receive a $100 million loan with a 60% loan forgiveness through PACE. We are in the process of finalizing our application on that to install an 80 megawatt 2-hour battery in our service territory. In addition to that, we were also awarded nearly $300 million through the New Era program, which was also through the USDA. And that particular program originally was looking at a large-scale wind project with battery energy storage and some additional infrastructure transmission. We're still working through that program and what that would entail going forward as well. Kind of with that, we're still in the process of evaluating 2 potential wind projects as a power purchase agreement within our service territory, and we'll be making decisions on that here very, very soon. In addition to that, we're finalizing through a partnership with Westinghouse, a grant that was issued through the Department of Energy, which was a $50 million grant to do a front-end engineering design study on long-duration energy storage. And so, as you've heard about some of these battery energy storage projects that are typically a 2-hour to potentially up to 4-hour energy storage, a long duration was looking at the opportunity to have storage much longer than that, 12 to 24 hours of storage capability. So we'll be finishing up the work with Westinghouse for the phase 1 of the front-end engineering design by the end of January, and then we'll have a decision point whether we're going to move on to phase 2, which would include the steps toward construction, or if that will or will not work on our service territory, but that's currently being evaluated. So really with Golden Valley, a lot of things we're focusing on right now is continued diversification of our generation portfolio, trying to, recognizing that the volatility of fuel is something that does impact our members that we really don't have much control over. Where we don't have access to natural gas, makes it a little bit more difficult for us to have as much control over those volatility that we see in the fossil fuel market. So we're trying to find ways to diversify and provide more rate stability to our members going forward. So with that, I'll leave it at that. That's kind of the introduction of what we've got going on, and happy to take questions at the end. Thank you.
Wonderful. And that's a great reminder. If you have questions, write them down so remember them for a few minutes from now so we can ask the various speakers those questions. Next up we have is Tony. Are you presenting?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. And I've got a slide deck here.
Okay.
Okay, can you see it?
I can, yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, go ahead.
All right, great. We can move to the next slide. I'll introduce myself. My name is Tony Izzo. I'm the CEO of Matanuska Electric Association. I've been in this position for 10 years. Prior utility experience goes back 45 years, New Jersey, Michigan. I ran a 35,000 meter utility, was recruited by NSTAR, and was the president of NSTAR from about 2001 to 2007. I don't have a lot of similar information, but I'll try to move through this quickly. We can go to the next slide because Brian already covered the principles, the cooperative principles. So Matanuska Electric, we serve a very large service area. We're the oldest cooperative in Alaska, established in 1941. We have 4,800 miles of power lines, a little over 72,000 meters and 58,000 members. We recently became the second largest population center in the state of Alaska. We're significantly adding new services. I'll touch on that a little bit later, but about 1,200 new services per year. And I'll talk about the capital budget that is associated with ensuring reliability for that kind of growth. Next slide. Just very quick, democratic member control is principle number 2 of the cooperative principles. I would just want to point out here, not necessarily the individuals, although you have the specifics, but how we're structured is we have 4 districts. We serve from the way station, Eagle River, Chugiak, Wasilla, Palmer, all the way up to the park. And we have 4 different districts. So we have a board member that represents each of those districts. And we have 4 at-large members to ensure that we can cover the membership and ensure that they are adequately represented and have access to the cooperative leadership. Next slide. So in terms of listening to our members, we're proud. We do an annual survey every year. We get lots of feedback regarding what our members want. As others stated, it's safe, reliable, and affordable service. That certainly was challenged this last weekend with the unprecedented multi-day windstorm, where we had 23 crews, 9 of our own, 2 from Chugach, and every contractor that we could find was out there restoring that power. 64% of our membership gives us a very positive rating. When I started in the utility business, we were often told as leaders that utilities were hated less than the IRS and a little less than the airlines. And I think the IRS is still in first place. We're proud to see that we're at 64%. And when you put that in perspective, you'll see NSTAR and then MTA and GCI down at the bottom. Next slide, please. We are very focused on the core mission, and that includes financial stability. That includes rate competitiveness. Others talked about retiring capital credits. We just retired 3.4 million that went back to our members. We do a lot of benchmarking at Matanuska Electric to determine trends. Sometimes you'll see differences between utilities, and as long as you can explain them, it's okay to be different. In this particular case, we look at the base rate, meaning everything except for the volatile cost of fuel. And we look at what does it cost per kilowatt hour to deliver that service. This is the employees, the linemen, the trucks, the vehicles, everything except fuel, generation, purchase power. And we're proud to be on the left there at the lowest, 16.7 cents a kilowatt hour. And you can see the other utilities as you move to the right. Next slide, please. So focusing on financial strength, one of the things that we have been preparing for is the volatility in fuel. MEA will not necessarily go right in for a rate increase because of inflation or because of last winter was warmer than normal, so our kilowatt hour sales were below target. And so rather than seek an immediate increase, what we did is we found ways to cut costs without sacrificing employee development, without sacrificing reliability, such that we could finish the year with a 0% change in our base rates. And we project and have already put in for 2% starting in January, and we anticipate that will be it for the entire year. When we look at MEA customer usage, which I believe is quite a bit higher than some of the more urban areas like Anchorage, when you plug that into our, if you are an MEA member based on rates of the other utilities, you'll see that Chugach North, the old MLMP, is at 20 cents a kilowatt hour. MEA is at 23, and then you just move over to the right and you can see what the differences are there. One other point I'd like to make is we have an equity management plan. Utilities have these, but it is it is a stake in the ground for MEA in terms of ensuring financial growth to be prepared for not only the bad times, but for opportunities. And I'm thrilled to say that in the last 10 years, we have exceeded that equity target every single year, including this year. Next slide, please. Here are some more comparisons, and I need to qualify this first. The MEA numbers, and on the bar chart here, we are on the left. MEA is on the left. We took publicly available information that is likely a year to probably 2 years old for the other utilities that you see here. So I would not state that this is exact, but we are not using it necessarily to be exact. We're using it to look at trends, to compare ourselves and our efficiencies to others. So what you'll see on the left is the miles of energized line. We're at over 4,800. Got Chugach at 3,700. Golden Valley, Travis had said almost 3,500. HEA 2,500. On the right side, we look at density. This is a common benchmark in a utility business. Density is an indication of, well, I'll just say it, windshield time. So, for example, when MLMP was on this chart prior to being sold to Chugach, they had 75 meters per mile and maybe 400 miles of energized line. The density was shocking to MEA in comparison, where we're very spread out, and you can see that we're 15 per mile, and that's similar to Golden Valley as well as Homer Electric. Chugach we show at about 30 meters per mile, and all that does indicate that you have much greater density. I think if you drive through Anchorage, you'll probably see that yourselves. If you drive through Wasilla on your way up to Willow, you'll certainly see the density declining quite a bit. So these are just overall averages. And let's go to the next slide, please. So here what we have is number of full-time employees. I made a note to myself because it became clear to me when Julie Haskett mentioned Chugach is 450 employees. So this probably is a number, 525 is incorrect. That's probably a number prior to or just at the time of the acquisition. So I've made a note here of 450. we'll certainly correct that. But MEA has got 232 full-time employees. Julie said Chugach is 450. And I would say the others are probably plus or minus, depending on changes over the last couple of years. What this drives to for us is a metric of efficiency, which is consumers or meters, points of service per employee. We want to be efficient. We want to ensure safety, reliability, and affordability. But this is one way that we share with the board an efficiency metric. So Matanuska Electric has 316 meters per employee. I revised on my notes here. The Chugach number is not 216, it would be 252. And then the others you can see to the right, Golden Valley, Homer Electric. Again, there are lots of reasons when you get into benchmarking the purpose is really to ask yourself questions, not to say who's better. It's to determine, am I running in the pack? Am I the most efficient, the least efficient? And then why is that? And if I'm the most efficient, but I have a density of 75 meters per mile, well, that's probably why I'm the most efficient, or one of the contributing factors of why I'm so efficient. Next slide, please. Energy portfolio. Other utilities spoke about this. You know, I wish I have some exciting news on the gas supply front. I just cannot, I cannot state what that is tonight. That'll have to wait until it's filed. But I did want to talk about our diversification. We are about 16% renewable. MEA's philosophy, though, is that renewable has to be, it can't sacrifice reliability, and it can't increase rates. So on the bottom left, you'll see a solar farm, one of the largest, if not today, the largest, the 8.5 megawatt solar farm in Houston. There's a 1.2 megawatt in Willow. We do not own these. Independent power producers built these, and we entered into agreements to purchase all the power. And how we structured those agreements is that we will always pay less than our avoided costs, or our cost, for example, just take a discussion, our cost to generate power for natural gas is a certain amount, and our contracts with the solar farms are predicated on the fact that we will never, over the life of the agreement, pay more than we pay for any other power, which we think is just the responsible thing to do for our members. It eliminates the risk of owning something like this. For example, we found out, and it was recently sold for a variety of reasons. One is that it underperformed by about 20%. The other anecdotally interesting point is that we found out at minus 15, the inverters don't work anymore. Now it's the dead of winter when it's minus 15 and you're not getting a whole lot of solar, but every little bit helps. And certainly you can get inverters now that are rated for much, much lower temperatures. So that's not going to be an issue going forward. Let's move on, just for the sake of time, to the next slide. Infrastructure improving reliability. Our capital budget has almost tripled in the last 10 years. We see, I wouldn't say it's a great story for the state. It's been a good story for MEA, but the state itself is not growing in population. But MEA service territory, as I mentioned, we're adding about 1,200 new points of service each year. Our informal polls indicate that about half of that is coming from Anchorage. The other half is coming from other parts of the state. So unfortunately, it's not a good picture for the state, but it certainly helps in terms of spreading costs over a larger consumer base, that doesn't necessarily drive rates down significantly because, as I mentioned, the capital investment has tripled in the last 3 years. We have quite a robust program over the next 5 to 10 years, building multiple substations, transmission lines to ensure that reliability is maintained. And frankly, there was a management at MEA some 15 plus years ago that we found was not really maintaining, whether it be vehicles, IT infrastructure, system infrastructure. And so we've had to play a lot of catch up. And MEA is not here with a sales pitch in any way, but my advice as someone who worked in mergers and acquisitions, merging utilities together, small utilities together throughout Michigan, is that you really need to look at those kinds of things. You need to look at, what is the equity ratio, and how are they planning to do that? What are they investing in? Is there potential for sales increases to spread costs, or are sales decreasing? There are just quite a variety of those things that I would suggest you look at, and that's not the focus of this presentation. So we'll move on to the next slide. As the others mentioned, energy education partnerships, borough efficiency partnerships that we have, lots of things that we do in our communities, like the others had already mentioned. And I think we're close to the last slide. We can move on to that. This is just a summary of giving back to the communities. The cooperative principles are critical to us. MEA was played a critical role out in the with an electric utility out in the Aleutians many decades ago. Recently, with the typhoon out on the West Coast, we provided all of the transformers for Kipnuk. And as I think it was Trish or Julie mentioned, when there is an emergency, I think the railboat does a fantastic job. The people that are keeping the lights on, the people that are operating and maintaining the system, we are like next door neighbors taking care of each other. With that, I look forward to questions. Thank you so much.
There were 2 quick slides that
I'm sorry.
right by. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good slide.
That's a good one.
Apologies. Yeah, I recognize those guys. Yeah, another example of just cooperation. I think everyone's aware of the relationship where MEA provides a service to Seward. We've entered into another 1-year contract that was just signed. This is one of those cooperative principles. Co-ops helping co-ops, and in this case, you're not a co-op, you're a municipal utility, but you're owned by the people that you serve. So in my view, it's essentially the same thing. And our direction from me, I try to stay out of the way and let people do good things. We're very proud of both Taylor and Brian. And they get Brian when we speak, which is not very often because he's a seasoned leader. I just continue to remind him that keep doing what you're doing, number one, because we're there to provide what's in the best interests of Seward and the communities they serve. And actually, if you look at one of the recent regulatory filings, you'll see a little bit of difference of opinion between MEA and Seward. And I think I'm proud to point that out because I think that's a great example of walking the talk in terms of providing the most ethical stewardship of that we can for partners that we work with. Again, I think that's the last.
There was one little community one.
Okay, well, I think, yeah, like the others, we're community owned, so we serve the communities we serve.
Okay, those are all the presentations and slide presentations we had. So we can open up for questions now. We have a nice half hour to do that. And I think we'll go between the room there, Brian, if you want to help manage that. And then when people have questions online, and I have a few here that I have from folks, but we can just go ahead and maybe start in the room there for any questions for any of the speakers.
Sure. Any questions, you can come up to the table. You can probably stay in your seat, but, oh, we got the chair going the other way, wrong way tonight. So if are there any questions from anybody in the room for any of the folks that spoke tonight?
I guess I'll go
Sure.
first.
Jump in.
Good evening. My name's Doug Bolden, and I've been a resident of Seward since 1979, and I want to give a thanks to the electrical department and all those winters. My house has never gotten cold. My freezers have never gotten warm. So no matter what the situation was, they were out there fixing the thing. Also, a little background on myself. I do have a engineering degree. Trouble is, it's from electrocution. A couple of courses with 120 volts, a couple with 220. So with that, I need to stick on a single line item that's been kind of bothered me, and that's this BESS system, these battery storage energy systems. Sounds like they do what they're supposed to do. The downfall to those things, from what I've been able to find out, they have a service life, about 10 years, 10 to 15 years, as near as I can figure. So here in Seward, looking down the road, we're going to have to replace a battery system. So my question or my thought is, okay, first of all, how many vessels are actually going to come to the port? How many of those vessels actually have the mechanical means to plug into our shore power? How many of those vessels are actually going to plug in after you tell them what you're going to charge them? Because there are no regulatory mandates that they have to plug in at this time. There's nothing out there that says you have to plug into our shore power. So that's the kind of the downside to these battery things. And a lot of people have been talking about other areas that they're using these battery storage systems. The good and the bad. I haven't heard anybody talk about the downside of these things. So,
Do you want to direct that question to someone specific?
I can tackle that too from the Seward side for our grant. I'm Kat Sorensen. I'm the city manager. I'll let the experts answer the battery questions, but for the regulatory aspect of it and the various ships that will plug in, we see about 70 to 85 ships annually in Seward, and we're working closely with Royal Caribbean, who will be the main, the flagship in company in the new Seward cruise ship terminal to make sure that all of those ships and all of our infrastructure aligns with what they utilize. So our goal is to have all of that be able to be used by every ship that comes into the port due to the technology that we're using. And then down the line, once those are up and running, the city will be exploring putting in regulatory requirements so that any ship that is able to come into the city of Seward and plug in will have to do so. That being said, we've also been working really closely with the cruise industry. They're a huge partner with us in this project and encouraged us to apply for this grant. So I wouldn't assume, or at this point, we haven't had any pushback from them in any way, shape, or form. And I anticipate that relationship in the electric realm of it and the shore power side being a smooth sailing, for a pun. But I will let the variety of experts on batteries answer the question on replacement.
Sure. So on the battery contract, when we will go out with an RFP for the battery, and when we select the vendor, currently the way those battery contracts are structured are, you can either buy the battery with the capacity on the day that you turn it on, and over time it will degrade. The life is actually about 20 years with the current lithium-ion technologies. Or you can pay a little more upfront, and they will build the batteries so that it doesn't decline and it stays at the 12 megawatts for the 20 years. And what they really do then is oversize the battery so that it decays to to the 12 megawatts at the end of its life. They size the inverters for the 12 megawatts, and then they just reserve that on out. Obviously, you pay more for that up front. We'll look at a cost-benefit analysis of which one of those looks more favorable. Obviously, the risk with doing the long-term contract is you're stuck with this battery technology for 20 years, and if something better comes out, you're stuck there with whatever the loss, round-trip losses are on that particular battery technology. If you just pay for it up front, and as the battery declines, then you're going to have to add the batteries yourselves. But there is the potential that, you know, battery prices may come down as they become more popular. So that's going to be a cost-benefit analysis that we'll do at the time.
Okay. Thank you. I guess my major concern is just for that single line item that the cruise ship industry is going to cover that cost.
So RCC is our partner.
Not the residents of Seward.
Yeah, RCC is our partner in this project.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
Royal Caribbean is who RCC is.
Yeah.
Hey, Brian.
Can you speak to what
Yeah.
Can you speak to what percentage of the value, that 45 million, is the battery versus the infrastructure that's supporting the battery and the power?
No, you know,
And then hookups and everything?
I
If it had to get replaced.
can't right now because really pre-fees. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Someone on the phone let me answer your question, and then we'll go to whoever was on the screen. So right now we're in the feasibility design portion of this, and we're working on a detailed estimate. We should have that within the next week to 10 days. And we have, like I said, we have a stakeholder meeting on Friday. There'll be a readout there. But once we gather all this together, I'll be able to answer that question, but I can't answer it tonight.
And then, Brian, if people ask questions in the room, will you repeat them to make sure everybody online can hear them too?
Yep.
And then we have a question, and we also need you to sort of stand near the microphone too. We have all kinds of demands here on the internet land. We have a question here.
Can you hear me better?
Yes, much better. We have a question here. Someone asked if, it just moved. I'm so sorry. Someone asked if Chugach Electric can speak to the conflict between Chugach and NSTAR with regards to how we receive LNG, liquid natural gas, when we eventually import gas. So just talk about that issue. And Julie Haskett, do you want to talk about that? You said yes, or who?
So I will start, and then if Trish or Nick want to augment my answer. We don't see it as a conflict. We see it as two different ideas. We're talking to Harvest about the existing terminal down in Nikiski to import LNG. And the reason we wound up with Harvest is because they were the one that could meet our deadline of needing gas April 1 of 2028. Now, the whole Glen Farn NSTAR discussion is a different project at a different site that is actually a greenfield. They would have to build their plant. At early discussions, they had told us they weren't going to have gas until 2030-ish or longer. So that's why we wound up talking to Harvest. We have not signed any agreements at this time, and discussions are ongoing. We need gas in 2028, and so we're going to figure out how we do that. But we don't see it as a conflict. We just see it as two projects, and only one of them meets our timeline currently. Ultimately, the RCA is probably going to be the one that decides if there's one or two projects. And I don't know if anybody else wants to add to that answer.
Looks like Nick's lined up to say something.
I'll add a little bit, and I do want to focus on the seriousness of the gas supply. I know in Seward it might feel a little insulated because unfortunately you're not on the natural gas for heating and home commercial use. But so I'm a gas guy. Before coming to Chugach Electric, I spent almost my entire career on gas, most recently on the Alaska LNG project, where I was there for a better part of 8 years, worked on trucking LNG to Fairbanks, worked at NSTAR. And I think maybe by accident, pursuing two different projects is probably going to result in the best possible thing for Alaska, because we're going to have two different projects to choose from. We're going to be able to figure out which one meets the timelines of everybody, which one has the lowest cost. So it's really, I don't see it as a conflict. I think the news has kind of spun it as a conflict, because that's fun, and I don't expect there to be ever two LNG import facilities, but we have two that are going to compete and see which one has the lowest cost and the fastest timeline with the most security. So it's all the utilities are pulling, trying to figure this out. And the way the system works, there's one pipeline system. If one person is short on gas, the entire system is short on gas. Contractually, it may be one or the other was the one short, but if we have to start shedding load, it's everyone in together. So we are really pulling the same direction, but developing two different ideas.
Is there a way to raise a hand? I can't see it.
Oh. You can just raise your hand and I'll know it.
It's under reactions, Tony.
Thank you, Trish. Yeah.
But Tony Izzo, you have the floor, and then we have another question. Go ahead.
Yeah. Nick mentions the gas guy. I started in 1980, was hired in 81. I worked in an LNG plant, had salt cavern gas storage in Michigan. One of my specialties was working on gas lines, designing pipelines, building pipelines. But one of my specialties was pre-Civil War gas lines that were still in service. Which is kind of shocking to me because when I came to NSTAR, their oldest pipe is 1961, and I was used to stuff that was from like 1850 something. I have a little bit different opinion. All of the utilities, including NSTAR, were working together on an LNG import project. We all learned in a press release that Chugach was partnered with Harvest. That has raised a lot of concern with legislators. Personally, as Nick said, I agree that I don't think there's going to be more than one project. But as much as I believe and said earlier that the utilities do a great job on the rail belt of keeping the lights on, it's a little bit shocking to me and egregious, frankly, that the utilities on the rail belt are not working together on a single effort economy of scale, because we're all so tiny in the scheme of things that it's a flaw of the rail belt. I'll just leave it at that. I disagree completely.
Okay, we have some more questions online, but I want to go to the room there to make sure we kind of get folks from everywhere.
We have one here. Oh, sorry. Let me get over here. We have one.
Hi, and I'll follow up with Doug. Thank you. We're going from engineer to geologist. All we need next is an attorney, and we'll just keep sliding down. Nick? Okay, so my first question,
Can you introduce yourself?
I'm sorry, I'm Victoria.
Thank you.
I moved to Seward from Key West in April, so I have a lot of, I've seen a downward sliding as well of a community that didn't fairly regulate their cruise ship industry. So I've been quite impressed with what Seward has done. So kudos to Ms. Sorensen, who's online. So thank you, Seward, for looking out for people's interests. So I have a two-part question. First part is to Nick. I'll go for 30 seconds to you and then follow up with Brian on the second part. So the first part is we're all talking about democratic control, but we're sitting here with cash cow. Unlike Doug, I believe very much that we're going to see a tremendous income from this shore power. So do you have a specific agreement with Whittier, or is the net income distributed equally among all the members? Because we're only 3%. If Seward's only 3% of your membership, if we were to select you, but we're giving you this huge cash cow, what do we get out of it? So my first question is how is, or do you project, because you haven't had a full season yet, your distribution of net income?
So I would answer that a little bit
from the shore power.
Yes, I would answer that a little bit differently. We don't think of it in terms of net income. We think of it as spreading our existing fixed cost over more units, which in setting rates, it's a simple math. It's cost divided by the number of units. So if your number of units increase, the rates go down. So we see it as an opportunity with Whittier. We've got a tariff rate for shore power. We'll see what actually happens once we build out the shore power, whether we use the tariff rates or negotiate something for mutual benefit. But we don't see it as a net income driver. We see it as a net decrease in rates. And as Seward is a wholesale customer, we'd be selling likely wholesale power to the cruise ships. So that would be more denominators in our wholesale cost, generation and transmission. That would reduce the cost to Seward Electric.
Yeah, I see that like now, right? I got that. So my follow-up question is, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, no, go.
So Brian, my follow-up question is, it's my assumption now we're going to be choosing between either staying the same, going to our own co-op, or allowing us to be purchased by
Some
a
other,
real
that's one of the reasons we have all the,
Okay.
this is the universe of people who might
Yeah.
put in a proposal to purchase.
Okay, and so that's my question. What is the selection process? Is it RFP? Is it closed bid, open bid? How much does the public, once we make that decision to go that route, how much does the community have input into the selection? Why are you laughing? Oh. No, I mean, I'm curious because it would make me decide what I wanted to vote towards. So what's the process of the selection? And I do believe we have the cash cow on the shore power thing. How much of a negotiating tool are you going to utilize that if we're looking at a democracy?
Well, there's probably a number of questions buried in that comment.
But they were under 30 seconds.
So I guess, starting with the first part, our objective is to have a completely open and transparent process.
Mm-hmm.
That's the objective of this town hall.
Right.
We expect to have 2 more town halls. And once in the final town hall, we will do some pro forma financial analysis.
Okay, good.
So that people can look at what we think the cost. Obviously, you can't predict rates or anything else, but we'll look at what we think it would be, and people can do some, what we really believe is that the community needs to decide what they want to do with this
Mm-hmm.
utility, whether it's, and just, I will say, frankly, I've said it to most everybody here individually, what you have been doing for the last 3 years isn't working. I wanted to point out when Tony had that right-of-way up there, I don't know if you noticed that right-of-way, it looked like a golf course. You could drive a golf ball down that thing. That is not what you see in the right-of-ways here in Chugach. For 30 years or 40 years, no one's been maintaining them, and we're logging trees. It costs probably 10 times what it should cost to get our right-of-ways in shape right now. That's just one thing that hasn't been done in the past here. So something has to change, and I would say again, I have no dog in this fight. I'm here to I want to see the community come together around some solution that works for everybody, or at least the vast majority of folks. So with that, the process will be as transparent as possible. I think when we get to after the 4th town hall in the spring, then we need to decide where are we at. We will resurvey the community to try to get a understanding as to where folks are. Obviously, we'll present the results of that at the city council meeting like we did before. And then we'll have to decide where do we go from there. And I can't tell you that right now, but I can tell you we are committed to an open and transparent process where, to the degree we can get everybody on board to say, hey, this is what we think we ought to do, that's really my goal, whatever that turns out to be.
And just as a follow-up, I love talking about it, but I would love to see a spreadsheet of numbers. It would just be so much easier to make an informed decision if you have.
We will get there.
Okay.
We're not there, but we will get there.
Okay, thank you.
And Tony, do you have a comment on that topic?
Yeah, to the resident who just asked the question, I think how you negotiate, if you decide to sell, if you decide to become a co-op, that's one thing. If you decide to sell, and I'll give you an example. If I had a large revenue generator, a large user, because cooperatives are not for profit. When MEA sees kilowatt hour sales, and all the utilities, we see kilowatt hour sales that are higher than what we anticipate, that the next quarter that goes into lowering rates. If I had something in Talkeetna though that created a large, it could be a data center, a Bitcoin miner that generated a large amount of kilowatt hour sales, everybody across my system would benefit from that. And as a small community, if you find that you have something like Ship Power, and by the way, Brian's correct. The battery life is about 20 years. And the battery that MEA is partnered in with Chugach, it will pay for itself in under 10 years. So we think that's a good investment. But you could certainly make that a condition of any sale, that a benefit like that or a separate set of rates for your community is structured as part of the sale.
Thank you for that, Tony. I'm going to go to online now. We have a question to Homer Electric, Sarah. What kind of leverage does Homer Electric have to negotiate LNG, say, compared to Chugach? Just different size organizations. How does that look?
Yeah, and I think to speak to Tony's point earlier, I think that's part of the reason why it was really important for the utilities and Instar to partner, so that we do have in combined form more leverage to influence the LNG import options. And so we have been working with the gas working group in order to procure those options for us in the future. Going it alone, I think for any small utility would be ill-advised, because you'd really be competing against much larger groups. And I think there is a lot of benefit from that combined effort for negotiating what we're going to see as LNG options in the future.
Okay, we can go back to the room. Are there any questions? Next questions in the room there?
Well, we had, I'm Bob Lindsville, long-term resident, our customer of the Seward Public Utility. And I'm not an engineer or a geologist, but I'm a hiker. And I heard from another hiker that hiking up Godwin Creek about 4th of July, there was a Chugach electric flow meter in the creek. And this is, I haven't actually seen it, but assuming that's true, the follow-up rumor was that there's a water rights application at the DNR, state water rights for power. I just wondered, from Chugach, are you aware of that?
Not aware of any specific flow meter. I will say that Chugach has a very aggressive decarbonization goal to reduce our carbon, and we're looking at all options, including hydro.
Mm-hmm.
We understand the sensitivity of any hydro in Alaska. Choose to live in Alaska for a reason. One of those is flowing water. But because of the decarbonization goals, we are exploring everything. And we've seen a lot of hydro projects go amiss by not engaging at the right time, but I can't comment on any specific flow meter.
I just wondered if there's any work at all on nearby hydro to Seward, which is like within one mile of our grid. I would wonder if you had collaborated with the local community at all on that work. If there's going to be water rights applications and such.
Boy, we would, before we touch anything close to moving beyond scoping, we will engage the community first. There are a lot of lessons learned from project developers and utilities that I worked on specific Watana for periods.
Yeah.
And my first board meeting with Chugach Electric in executive session. So sorry, Julie, Trish, I'm breaking executive session. The idea of should we explore hydro came up, and I got up and said, Watana might have been a great project. It fails in the community outreach. It starts first. These are these people water. And if they want us to allow to use water for a different use or any use at all, it starts with talking to people. And the Chugach board heard that loud and clear. And that's, as a Chugach employee, one of the reasons I can come down here and sit here is I'm very confident that we will do this right if we do choose to explore it.
Well, when it comes to what we're going to do as a utility, whether we're going to go with a co-op or sell it to one of these other co-ops, for me, the whole attraction of keeping control of it in our own co-op would be to develop these hydro systems, because they're all around our town. And it just seems to me like if there's somebody trying to jump in ahead of us before we even make the decision, that would kind of hurt me, as a community member, that I didn't get to really, our own right backyard got jumped on. So that's why I asked the question. Thanks for the answer.
Yeah, I'll check it. I don't know anything specific. I know, Julie, if you want to jump in on that, but.
I think you covered it. We can't really hear the discussion very well, so I don't want to jump in on something I can't hear. I think you covered it fine from what I could take up from it.
I'm gonna
The
go
last
back
thing I was
to,
wondering is just,
well, go ahead, go ahead.
I just wondered, one thing.
Could
You know,
you
it's-
speak into?
Yeah, if when we sell this thing, we're gonna lose some employees, it seems to me. There's a lot of areas of, that our Seward Public Utility handles with engineering and just operations and, the public, the billing and all that. Is that, those employees we're gonna lose them, they're gonna go up the road. I mean, I don't know how you could, that's kind of the reason you're interested, right, is to consolidate all the overhead.
I wouldn't say that I'm down here to
Yeah.
sell or pitch anyone on selling.
Yeah.
I just know it's something you're considering, and I wanted to come down here and provide information on Chugach
Yeah.
Electric. You've got two top-notch professionals
Yeah,
running.
oh, they're awesome.
But what I will say is when we acquired ML&P, we didn't lay off employees.
Yeah.
We got the efficiency slowly through attrition.
Hmm.
And it'd be a key concern, and that would be something that we work very sensitively and thoroughly with the community.
All right, thanks very much.
Sean,
We have about-
anything?
Yeah, we got a couple of questions here. Yes, there's one, I've got a couple of stacked up here. One is, can you speak to the question, isn't the utility that has the most green energy in their portfolio going to win in terms of ultimately cheaper energy? Trish, you want to take that one? I see your hand raised.
Sure, I can start on that one. Typically, green energy refers to renewables like hydro, wind, and solar. Dividing the world of that into two boxes, starting with hydro. Hydro is dispatchable, so it's different than wind and solar. When Bradley Lake went in, hydro tends to have a very high capital cost at the beginning, but then produces the least cost power on the system. So currently the least cost power on the system comes from hydro. Everyone has a share of Bradley Lake, and that's about 4 to 4.4 cents. And then we have Chugach also has Cooper Lake, and Chugach and MEA together have Eklutna Lake. So those are the cheapest energy resources on the system. But again, high capital costs at the beginning, but once the project is paid for, it's a 100+ year project. So a very, very long lifespan for those assets. For wind and solar, those are intermittent resources, and so not necessarily are they cheaper. There's a couple of factors. If you're going to have an economy of scale on large projects that take up a lot of room, like wind and solar, you need to find a place big enough to have them. And the further you get from the transmission system, the more road you potentially have to build, because there may not be a road to that site in such a young state as Alaska. But also the transmission lines have to tie in. So those are a couple of big ticket items. The third big ticket item is if it's a size that is beyond the regulation capacity of a utility. And by that, I mean, because it's an intermittent resource, it doesn't have a steady flow all the time. For example, the sun shines in the daytime, but not in the night. But even during the day, a cloud passes over, it changes how much energy output it will have. And so you have to have something firm alongside it to back it up when it pulls off. And it's nanosecond to nanosecond. So you have to have that regulation resource as part of the project. So green energy isn't necessary. And to compare that to lower 48, they may be able to absorb larger amounts of intermittent energy. But the rail belt grid is a small grid, it's islanded, it's sensitive. And so it is possible to overwhelm it with too much intermittent if you're not regulating it. I'm trying to make that not technical, and I'm not a technical person. So if there's additional questions, let me know, but that's the short answer.
And if I might just follow up really quickly, the loss of the federal tax credits for wind and solar has made everything more expensive.
Very good point. We have like 2 minutes left. I see Delbert, is that you? You have a question?
Yeah, Kevin Dunham. I live outside the Seward city limits. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I heard a couple of people talk about that the co-ops are a democracy, where Seward is really a half a democracy, because anybody that lives outside the city limits, which is 50% of the customers, we have no voice. Yet we pay about $600 on average more for our power than the Chugach customers do. And it just doesn't make sense. If we go to be a cooperative, it'll take about 6 to 10 years to set that up. That's several $1,000s out of all of our pockets while we set that up, because I think Seward actually charges us quite a bit too much for our power. The other thing is, I worked for 40 years in the rail belt system, 22 years with Chugach, 16 with Golden Valley, and then a year each with Homer and Matanuska. All good companies, but I got to say that one reason that Chugach would be the number one choice is their depth of the expertise. They have that many employees because they do so many things in-house. They have a wonderful engineering department. You don't have to wait like at Seward. You have to wait. And if you go in to say you need power hooked up, at Chugach, you could probably have it in a very short period of time, whereas in Seward, it could take months. So there's a lot of reasons I see where Seward the customers could really benefit from joining Chugach.
Kevin?
Thank you.
Kevin, is there a question in there somewhere?
No, that was more of a statement, Brian.
Well, we have, I think you should get a prize for working at every company on this call tonight, I think. Thank you for that. We're gonna have we had one more clarifying statement from Julie Haskett. They're gonna turn to Brian because we're at 7:30 right now. Julie, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up briefly on Tony saying that it was shocking and egregious that we're all not working on the same project. And I just want to go back to the timeline. Chugach has to have gas in April of 2028, and the Glen Farm project never came to us with that timeline. So we're not trying to be difficult. We want to work with everybody, but we have to go with the company that has the gas on the timeline that we need. And I know Harvest has reached out to the other utilities to see if they're interested in that project. So we weren't purposely trying to not play nice. It's just that's the project that came to us that meets our timeline.
Okay, Brian.
Sean, I actually have two questions if we could take them in the room here, and then I'll close it out. If that
Go
works.
ahead. Go ahead. Yep.
Jim McCracken. Renewable. Is renewable power is the question. Seward Electric System owns 1% of Bradley Lake. Homer Electric lady, I looked at my notes, said it was going to be increased by 15%. 50%. What does that actually do for Seward? 1% of the existing plus 50% increase. That's a large slice of renewable for Seward. Instead of these little plants we're dealing with, we concentrate on that and the wire size to get it here, we'd be miles ahead. Bradley Lake. We already own it. 1%. Thank you.
No question there either. Okay, from now on, questions.
Within 30 seconds. Hi, I'm Rhonda Hubbard. Second generation Sewardite inside city limits. I wanted to follow up on a comment that was made about the cooperative. Chugach specifically said, well, all of you said you collect money, extra money, you return it to members. Then, in our case, Chugach returns it to the city of Seward, correct? And maybe this is the accountant's question, but I want to know how often in the past 5 to 10 years that Seward has received such returns from Chugach.
I don't have that information right now. I know that pretty regularly.
Okay, and then, so the follow-up question.
I think you could maybe, I know, what's that?
So does that, and then I want to know, is it going to the general fund or is it going back into the utility fund?
It goes as a decrease in our cost of power from Chugach. So it doesn't come as a check to us, but it goes.
So we as,
lower. Yeah.
okay, so we as
It-
utility
it's a-
payers don't get to see
Many
it.
years ago, the check came to. Yeah.
So it
Go ahead,
goes into
Kathy.
the
Sorry.
bill as the cost of power adjustment. So you'll see it, the bill will be lower because it's in the cost of power adjustment that the bill comes through to the ratepayer in Seward.
So the COPA, we always have the COPA, but we usually, I don't know what the consistent or what the formula is, but so you're saying that that is not always as high or it fluctuates?
Well, it's the cost of power, and so it fluctuates with the cost of power production, which, and then when the capital credits come in, it's reflected in that.
What will happen is
I
the
believe.
Chugach board will choose to require capital credits for all its wholesale member classes,
which
right?
is the city of Seward.
And when that happens, City of Seward is one of them, and they get their proportionate share, and the cost of power is then adjusted down by that amount.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so specifically towards Nick's slide that he got stuck on, that actually committed, it sort of committed Chugach in a way, but I'm gonna maybe give you an opportunity to, you know, take that back or confirm and promise us that that's really where our race would be, because you noted the lower bar. So
I certainly went further than I had authorization to go. And that's maybe one of the reasons why I came down here, so Trish and Julie couldn't kick me on the table. But no, I think it's not a promise, but I think it's very realistic that your rates would look very similar to the Chugach South customers. Well, let me rephrase it. They would be the same as the Chugach South customers. And there might be a little bit of change, and I will expect in the future years for all energy costs to go up as we switch to more expensive fuels. But the idea is, if you were to join us as partners, the base assumption would be you would be paying the same rates as Chugach customers.
okay, thank you.
Okay, that's everything.
Can you name what that is right now, on average? Is that 20 cents a kilowatt, or?
It's north,
16?
I believe it was 24, and now we're 20 cents.
Okay.
MLP's low.
Oh, other way, right, yeah. I get it. Wish we did that one.
8 more years, 7 more years, 6 more years, 5. We're down to 5 now. It's been a long time. So Brian Hickey, I'm here kind of to close out the meeting. I wanted to thank all the folks who, I can turn around again. How did we get, no, I'm the right way now. I'm usually at the city council meeting, I'm facing the other direction. So I think I wanted to thank all the folks who took time out of their busy holiday schedules, both to be here in the room and the speakers who were presenting. You know, thank you so much for taking the time to kind of share what your cooperative is and is doing with the folks here at Seward. I wanted to kind of talk about the next steps. We intend to have a town hall, probably late January, early February, and we'll and then I think we'll have another town hall in the spring, so maybe March time frame. And once we get through I believe we'll redo the survey after the next town hall. We may do it before the town hall and then have the results to talk about. And then at that final town hall, our intent is kind of bring all this together and sort of give you a presentation that says, hey, you've looked at these folks, you know, you've looked at these folks. We've talked about how we're doing things internally. And here are sort of the financial implications of each of these. Here are the reliability implications of each of the things. Here are the governance implications of these. And then, you know, at that point in time, I'm hopeful that we'll have enough of a conversation with the community that's open and transparent enough that everyone can come together and say, hey, this is what we believe is best. At least get a large majority of the people to commit to what's best. We had, I believe it was 38%, and Shawnee, you can correct me on that. I may be a little high on that. 38% of the people said they didn't have enough information to make an informed decision. Our objective here is to give everybody enough information to make an informed decision. Now, may come out split, 50-50. If that's where we are, I'm not sure where we go from there. But those are the next steps. How to stay involved. If you have questions, write them down, send them to us. We'll try to address them or answer them at the next town hall. We can do a little presentation or a little deep dive, if there's specific things you want to talk about, write something up to us, send it to us. Like I said, we really just would like to bring the community together to do the best thing for the community.
Would this panel that's up there now, be okay with us sending them emails or phones or calling them questions?
You know, I think if you send them to me and I'll make sure I get them answered by them. Okay, I'm just saying, you know, I'm not committing all the managers of the rail belt to start answering day-to-day questions from folks from Seward. So, you know, there needs to be a bit of a gatekeeper there, but I promise you, if you send me a question, I will get it to the people and get it answered.
We stand ready to answer any questions. We'll come back down here. Arthur wants to make himself ready.
Well,
You have a very professional process here.
sure, but yeah, I heard just like someone from Golden Valley or, you know, Travis said something. We just don't have time, and I wanted to ask.
Well, and obviously, if you want to send Travis's direct email, but if it's a part of this process, please go through me, and I will get it answered.
Okay,
so
well, thank you,
with that,
everyone. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks.
And thank you, everyone.
Go ahead, Shauna. Take it away.
I'm just thanking everybody on Zoom. Some people have to get off because I know we're a couple minutes over here. So thank you for everyone in the room that helped with the technical side, George, and all the speakers tonight. It was very helpful. And thanks for all the participants for sending your questions and for asking questions in the room too. There is a website coming with the City of Seward, so there'll be information there as well.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Have a good night.
And if you're in the room, there's pizza and water. Help you.
Recording